After a massive turnout at the first Star Trek convention in 1972, there was a big push to revive the series with a Phase 2, but following the success of Star Wars and then Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they decided to go with a movie instead of a series. Now we have a series of 13 movies with more in the talks. Just like the TV shows, the movies all come with their own themes as well. Let's take a look at those themes and how well they work for the movie and the series. These are of course my own opinions, and I would love to hear from you. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Star Trek the Motion Picture premiered in 1979 with Jerry Goldsmith at the helm for the music. In a rare occurrence, the movie had an overture before the film began, starting with a bunch of stereotypical adventurous-sounding 1 to flat 6 progression. But once the film starts, after a 3-minute overture of a soft and barely building theme and 20 seconds of silence over the Paramount logo, this opening is a huge hit, giving that whoa feeling, in very much the same way that B-flat chord hits you in Star Wars after silence and the iconic opening text. There's a short build into the title card, and we are greeted with the arrival of the main theme. The melody and feeling here is very much adventurous. This is the same sound used in other adventure-style movies like Indiana Jones. This theme stuck so well for the audience that they reused it as the theme for the next generation. It also established the sound for the series as a whole going forward, rebranding from the original theme, although the iconic fanfare will make its return and probably will never be replaced. With the success of the motion picture, a second movie was inevitable. With a much lower budget, they couldn't afford Jerry Goldsmith, so they went with the cheaper young gun 28-year-old James Horner. This film doesn't have an overture, but does start similar to it. We start with our known fanfare, then a big wind-up as if showing that something epic is coming. And then the main theme hits with the title card, a theme that is similar to that of the motion picture overture. Like with the motion picture, the flat 6 adventurous feel is there as well, but James Horner makes it his own, and with arpeggiated strings really drives home that deep space feel. Had they repeated what was done for the first film, it would have been stale, but they had a shortened version and lead up to the theme that worked in the same style and had a strong impact into the title card. James Horner returned for Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. After a cold open of a flashback, this opening to me isn't as strong as The Wrath of Khan was.
To seek out new life forms.
There's the typical build-up with our familiar fanfare,
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
but it doesn't deliver musically when the title card hits. The theme develops on the previous movie, but almost sounds like a question asked over and over with no answer. While I like the sound of the music, it doesn't move me at all like the previous two intros. Horner declined to return for Star Trek IV, so Leonard Rosenman was hired on. This time, after the opening fanfare, there's nothing musically happening into the opening title. The short build-up actually starts with the title card, which feels out of place. This opening is extremely bland. It doesn't excite us for what's to come. But once the names of the cast start to show, an exciting theme emerges, but it sounds more like an action Christmas movie rather than a Star Trek film. Jerry Goldsmith returned for Star Trek V, opening with the Courage fanfare and the two-thud callback to the motion picture. And it goes into the theme from the motion picture, but with no build into it. It's just there with this electronic wind-up, which is extremely cheesy in my opinion. The opening here is much shorter, so all we get is that main theme that is also used as the theme to Star Trek The Next Generation, which has been airing already. This opening to me just registers as a cash-in rather than try to establish a strong opening about the adventure to come. But seeing as this movie is considered the weakest, this could be a contributing factor. With the music being used for the Next Generation show, it's my thoughts that it should only be referenced, not entirely used in the movies, especially ones with the original series cast. Either that or the Next Generation should have gotten a different theme, but the progression of the main themes in the movie so far, this theme doesn't exactly fit in my opinion. Cliff Idleman composed the music for Star Trek VI after both James Horner and Jerry Goldsmith turned it down. What was meant as a darker film than the rest, they wanted the opening to be different. And so it was. No fanfare and not much in the way of a triumphant opening. No excitement with the title card either. This opening material sounds like a cross between Gustav Holst's The Planets and Danny Elfman's score to Batman. In terms of feeling, this theme comes across as more of a theme to a thriller rather than a Star Trek film. Of course this film is supposed to be darker, but it's like we are in for a different type of movie. The motion picture opens with a fantastic fanfare before altering course into the Klingon theme, and a much darker sounding music. So that possibility has already been done and proven. We will get to another good example later. Needless to say, I'm not thrilled with this opening serving as a Star Trek opening. However, I really do like the music. Dennis McCarthy was hired on for the music for the 7th Star Trek film. He was the main composer behind the episodes of the Next Generation series as well as Deep Space Nine's theme. After a weak revealing of the title card, the opening of this movie has a sense of wonder as this wine bottle flies through space. We get a beautiful trumpet solo as well. Everything keeps building to something, sustaining that sense of wonder, until we now hear our typical fanfare that we're used to from older films, but with a much grander sound. This opening really works for me, as it has that suspicion and building towards something, while this time it isn't into the title of the film, which came earlier than expected with an accented chord. The smashing into a new Enterprise works nearly as well, sending us off onto our voyage from the original series into the Next Generation. First Contact was scored by Jerry Goldsmith. It opens with our typical fanfare, but leads straight into the title card. While very effective, it does lack that sense of suspense we've had before. The rest of the opening has thematic material that feels more like a conclusion to a movie rather than the start. We hear the overcoming of a struggle, where it's been a long road to get here, but we did it, and look at what we've done. If the conclusion to this opening was more final, it would have been perfect for the ending of a movie. I wonder what music was used in the climax of this movie. Ah, yeah. It's the same music, so that explains that feeling, as it works really well here. Insurrection was scored by Jerry Goldsmith, opening with the same fanfare, but it has some twisty chords thrown in there, and the build-up I've been wanting into the title card. Not as long and drawn out, but similar to how the motion picture was done. From here, we get establishing shots of the inhabitants with the opening credits, and the music is very innocent and almost childlike. It doesn't set us up for what's to come in the movie, but more serves the purpose of the images that we see. While I don't have an issue with the music, my personal preference would have had more of an overture with the opening credits before this, but it works well for what it is. Star Trek Nemesis was also scored by Jerry Goldsmith. This opening reflects the original series opening. The opening trumpet line, which is not a triad as Wikipedia states, since the top note resolves down and there's a lot more notes to it, it reflects the motion picture opening overture. And once we get that opening Alexander Courage fanfare, it is accompanied by a slowly revealed title card. This opening only really works if you are aware of the past intros with the music, giving it the "aw yeah, new Star Trek movie" feeling. Let us not forget the two thuds in the middle. Another callback to the motion picture. Right after the title card, the mood shifts sharply, giving me Total Recall vibes, which was the same composer. This mood shift is another example of how Star Trek VI could have been to show that it was going to be darker. Right out the gate here, we have the nostalgic Star Trek movie feel thrown immediately into, uh-oh, something's wrong. We sadly don't get an overture of sorts with the opening credits and a strong main theme, but the opening is still one of the stronger ones in my opinion. Star Trek 2009 set out to reboot the series on a separate timeline, with some connections to our known universe. They wanted to build their own. The music does the same. 2009's music by Michael Giacchino opens up with a soft horn solo over the opening production credits. There's a mild sense of adventure feel with a non-diatonic note in the melody, giving an ooh feel. It's not a flat 6, but a flat 2. Then we get a very long build, led by the horns until a big rip up, somewhat startling the listener. From here we have a cold open, something new to the franchise. I'm not counting the flashback in Star Trek 3. Oh, yeah, I guess Star Trek 5 exists too. At the conclusion, we are graced with some sad-sounding music that follows what just took place, but it transitions into exciting music going into the title card with the horn solo now transformed into a theme. The instrumentation works with what's been established before, but the color of the music is different enough to show that this will be something new, something different than what has come before. It concludes with a fanfare, then hammers in a minor chord. This theme works well for both establishing something new as well as fitting in with the franchise. We have that same fanfare and adventurous theme formula, but the formula has been altered and the color is also different, striking a very difficult balance. Star Trek Into Darkness starts out very similar to the first movie of the Kelvin timeline, but it is absent of the rip at the end. No need for that startle this time around, but the build is a little bit weird as it creates an expectation that just doesn't happen. We have another cold open, which now seems to be the trend of this new timeline series. At the conclusion, we get our fanfare into the main theme, but the title card doesn't come in until a second statement of that theme, and in the middle of it, which seems out of place initially. But there's a climax resolution that happens, and the subtitle of the movie is revealed here, being very effective. We get a mini fanfare to release us from the title card and into the movie. This works really well and fits with a similar intro to the first movie, establishing this as the theme for the opening of these movies. Star Trek Beyond's opening is much slower and the horn solo has a softer timbre to it, making it sound sadder in a way. This mirrors the mood in the opening of the film. It keeps us with the familiar theme and sets a different starting mood. We get a little bit of that excitement ostinato in there, just to remind us that it'll still be a fun adventure. The start of the actual movie gives us two notes that hit the nostalgic itch, but then moves on. The problem here is that we don't get a title card. Well, not until the end credits. We have now broken from the established norm of the first two films, and for me, I felt lost. It would have fit well after the opening captain's log, probably with a little less intense main theme behind it giving the opening mood of the movie. Actually, did you notice what's playing during the log?
Captain's Log, Stardate 2263.2.
There's our theme, just no build into a title card. The Star Trek movies started out with very strong openings, but went on the decline from there for the most part. When establishing a series like this, I believe there should be some consistency, at least with their themes. The Kelvin movies changed up the formula as a reboot, and it worked, at least in my opinion, but they abandoned it in the third film. So from here I pass it off to you. What are your thoughts of the theme for the Star Trek movies? Do you agree with my assessment and analysis, or do you have a different opinion? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you all next time.